Hello to everybody. It's my pleasure to have a presentation of the RRI, not just in the institutional level, as we heard from Doris and Isabella, but I would like to give my presentation a little bit broader and try to represent how the RRI concept could be important also for future biodiversity conservation and nature protection. So we are now facing with the biodiversity rapidly decline. There is a many factor causing the biodiversity decline. One of them are habitat transformation, landscape use, spreading of invasive species, pollution, climate change, and overexploitation. But recently with the overexploitation, we really think also about the illegal wildlife trade. And in the recent months, because of this and because of the coronavirus spreading, we were forced to the quarantine and lockdown isolation. But experts have been warning for decades that the habitat fragmentation and the human contact with the wildlife animal increase the risk of the disease. So the transformation of disease from the wildlife to the humans, obviously it comes to the mind that in the future is going to be higher. But nevertheless, we can see that today also this coronavirus lockdown bring us some positive impacts to the nature and the nature pollution and protection, because recently we saw that the wild species coming from to the rural and urban area, we find them in the places which hasn't been seen for many years. Then there is a dramatic improvement also in the air quality in these last few months, especially in the overpopulated industrial areas. And there was also a global decline in the greenhouse gas emission and other drivers of global changes which today's society is facing. So coming to this point, I think that we are more than ever aware of this important crossroad between many actors which are connecting science, especially also the bioscientific field, if we are talking about the conservation, but also non-scientific actors, which keeping in mind the economy and of course the society. So keeping this in mind, we have the opportunity to conserve biodiversity and the vital ecosystem services for the future, but only with bridging the gap with these three important actors. So coming to this, during our 4 years work in the STARBIOS, we were really happy to join the consortium of this project and the people working in different bioscientific fields, which in one way also have an influence of the nature and nature protection and development. We face the reason that there should be a really important link between the science and society, especially in conservation and nature protection. Because conservation and nature protection is some way the crisis discipline. It become as impact, I would like to say, also not just about development, but also in different innovation in different scientific fields. And keeping this in mind, we think that the open science and education of the future generation, and also to get involved as much as we can this society with the ethic principle should be really important for the decline, for keeping in mind to stop the biodiversity decline and nature degradation. So this, I would like to say, the RRI concept, I would think that this is a solution to keep in mind not just in the institutional level, but also in the scientific level to bring the society close to science. We heard it in our first talk that there is quite a lot of suspicion, uncertainties from the society when we are talking about the development, where we are talking about the risk assessment of the different field. in the bioscience. Especially we are facing today synthetic biology field. We heard about the gene editing, we heard about CRISPR, and these are the things which are not just connected with the humans, but are also connected with the nature. Keeping this in mind, that we can have really in the future also the possibility to use the synthetic biology in conservation of endangered species. Or maybe with this kind of development, we can make some risk assessment for the future. So, because of this, we think that the science and society and the responsible scientists need to interact with the society by representing the scientific results in an understandable way to the public, to the economy, to the decision makers, because we need to overlap the skepticism and not trust for the science in society, because we are facing, especially working in conservation, there is not such a huge public interest in environmental topic. There is maybe sometimes there is a lot of controversies also in some aspect, but also many times it's really detached from the human interest. And this should be changed for the future by sending a clear message about the importance of nature conservation and the risk if we do not care for it for the future generation. How can be this done? During the project, we really try to outreach the practitioners, the stakeholders, the policymaker, and of course the economy, and we come to the important results. We think that the citizen science approach, which is now going on and rising in European Union, could be a really important also approach for the conservation and nature protection in the future by incorporating, of course, the citizen, the society to the science. Getting this involved, if you want to, of course, include citizens, include the society into the scientific research, we need to think about the open science approach. So we need to invest into the public education, into the dialogue with the public and the policy dialogue, to represent our idea, to represent the risk assessment of something which is going on now in the science, especially not just in the bioscience, as I said, but maybe broader and the wider, also in other scientific manner which are influenced in the nature, which influence the nature and the biodiversity, and it will influence also in the future. To get this, of course, the open science is just one of the steps of the RRI concept. The next is education. So if we would like to have a society, if we would like to have economy which could understand what is going, the scientific dialogue and research and the results we have, we also need to educate the future generation of students, the future generation who are really in one way get the heritage of the nature from us. And this is also, we found that the education of importance of the nature protection is not just a manner of the university, it's the manner from the early life, so from the primary school to the high school to the university and broader after that, if we are thinking about the science, citizen science approach. So this education, I would like to say, from the first years to the end of our life, it's really important. And as a responsible scientist, we need to have this in mind where we are doing our research, how to make it. Of course, we shouldn't go below the ethics. We are talking about lots of ethics and in different aspects, also in scientific aspect, but we working in conservation and nature protection, we need to have in mind that the environmental ethics should be one of the target of the future. So working on everything we were doing in development, in economy, in many other approaches should depend on the environmental decision making, policy formation, and also the management, which should take care about the future nature conservation. So for the end, these approaches could be really complex. And as an institution which we are focusing our research and education in conservation, we try to use a different approaches. We use for many of the concept of the RRI bottom-up approach, but for some of them we need to use also the top-down approach. But it's important just to say that it's really important to work parallelly in three manners with the institution and the university have. We need to work on research, we need to work on education and knowledge transfer, but it's important to have in mind that we need to work also as a university, as a scientist, with the practitioners and citizens. Giving this in mind, and during the 4 years of our work, we try to do this in parallel. We try to merge these different aspects which are our work as a scientist and educator. So in the research, we try to strengthen ethical and gender aspect in the university. We try to force the open science approach, try to force to share our data, but not just with the student, with the scientific community, but also with the society. And this last part could be really difficult because, as I said, the conservation is a crisis discipline, and still humans, still society doesn't see the direct impact, direct impact, or I could say in time impact, which is sometimes as a people, when we see the direct impact, we are much easier react, or when we having in mind that the impact is going to happen in the future, in the next 20, 30 years after our work. Then we also work on the knowledge transfer and education. We make a change in some courses, we make change in syllabus of our courses and try to incorporate this RRI context also to the education, not just bringing the code of conduct for biology to the lab work and the field work of our student, but just to bring the whole concept of the RRI, especially this public engagement importance in the research and in the education of the different target group. So in this way, we work with our student, but we work also with the teachers, we work with the many educational workers, and in many different groups start to spread the idea and of the merging the society and science in bioscience and conservation. Try to give the society at least a direct, clear message how the development is important, but development which should be sustainable for the nature protection. And the last part is coming to the citizen science. We also work in this. We applied recently with 12 different partners from European Union and abroad for the citizen science project, because we think that this is the right way to bridge the gap between the research in society, not only in bioscience, but I would like to say in all of these important aspects which are recognized, like energy, like conservation, like health issue, which are recognized in the bioscience as important aspect of the future. And of course, we should keep in mind also working with the practitioner, because they are important also for the economy, to bring society closer to science and to make a link between society and science. Uh, this is everything from my side. I would like to thanks again to all the STARBIOS member, and it was really our pleasure to be in this project, because it brings us a quite a new view how the conservation and the nature protection could base in the concept for the future. Thank you so much.